Welcome to Making Room, a podcast inspiring people to accelerate change by being a catalyst, honoring creativity, and acting with courage. We are making room for the greatest potential of our community.
Welcome, you are welcome here. Welcome to this open door, dear. Our hands are reaching out for you. The floor is clear and we've made room for you.
All right, welcome back to Making Room. It's an amazing morning here. It's cooling off a little bit, so it'll probably be even colder by the time this releases. And Shivani and Brandon and I have our good friend Khaleel Loyd in studio here from Loyd Visuals. But much more than that, he's an amazing friend. Has a heart for community, full of purpose. He's an incredible brother, and he's a mobilizer, connector, community engager. UNCC alum, the guy can dance. He's got all kinds of skills, and I've had the chance to work with him on numerous projects. And from the start of when I first met him, this guy is just so talented. But more than that, we connected on the fact that he is so committed to community and giving back. So it's just awesome to have you, bro. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. Really
Yeah.
excited.
Absolutely. And it's the first day of Diwali as well.
It is. It's the first day of Diwali, which I propose to our guests. So it's the Festival of Lights, and obviously light is a big impact in the work that you do as well. But we are celebrating bringing light into our world and good over evil and all those good things.
We need that.
We do. And, it's no accident. It'll probably be a month later when people are actually hearing this, but how much of a light you have been in the Charlotte community.
Thank you.
And that word's important. And just love to hear a little more about what keeps you light. There's light, meaning of light, and we joked about you like to play chess and some things that, keep you having fun. So give us just first off, just some things you like doing for fun.
Yeah. And first, John, let me start by saying thank you guys for having me on the podcast. I'm a big fan and just admire all of you all individually. So to know that you all guys are coming together and actually doing something to create a platform, it really means a lot to me. So, what things, keep me light and what things I enjoy doing. Like you mentioned, chess has been a really big anchor in my family for a long time. Like I grew up playing with my uncles and my father. And the two of my younger brothers, Najim and Malik, we all played. So for me, I really enjoy the game because it slows me down a bit. Sometimes, in our day-to-day, we're going like 110 miles per hour. And so whenever I get a chance to play, I'm able to just relax, to think strategically, try to think, at least 3 to 5 moves ahead of my opponent. So those are some of the things I like to do. Also like to listen to a lot of music. If you follow me on Instagram, I'm probably like in the car singing, riding down, Central or riding
They
around
still don't
Charlotte.
let me sing. I'm trying.
I think I would get an award for shower singing for sure.
That's
You
good.
can
That's
to
a
that,
category.
John.
Shivani, she's always encouraging me to build my shower singing practice.
Right. Yeah, the acoustics in there,
Yeah.
work really well.
That's good.
But yeah, I love spending time with family. I work with my 2 younger brothers, and so we talk to each other every day. And yeah, I just really love to give back in whatever way I can, whether that be, any volunteer opportunities or any like philanthropic efforts. I make a point to center that, to make that a center of my world. And so those are some of the things that I like to do.
Well, ways that we all stay light, because it's important. This has been a really crazy couple years with all the things that have occurred, and to stay light in ways that you can move, but also light in, who you are. And so I'd love to hear too from Brandon and Shivani, some games or things we don't know about. I'll share one from me, like getting on a bike. I just feel like a kid. And sometimes I'm laughing and messing around. I put music on, and that is just a reminder of just the simplicity of getting on a bike. And it sounds like I got to be careful playing chess with you. You're moving 5 ahead. I'm going to go watch Searching for Bobby Fischer before I hang out with you again.
No, that's good. I may have to bring my son. My son loves chess.
Nice.
So I may have to let him play, let him learn from you, learn from the master. But So in COVID, I think a lot of people picked this up. I went back to golf, and so I've been playing more golf, and that's been good. It's just challenging because you never feel like you can conquer it, and some days you feel good, and it's like, man, I don't know if golf is for me the next day, but it's just that challenge. But one of the things we've been doing as a family, speaking of games, is this game called Catan. And they have a Catan Junior that we play with our kids.
Nice.
It is an amazing strategic game, and to see their little minds work of how they do, how they operate in it. So that's one of the things we play a lot at home to keep it light.
I love that. So I similarly, one of my favorite things to do to kind of keep things light is literally just plopping on the floor and like sitting with the kids and doing whatever it is that they're doing, because they always have tremendous ideas. So whether they're drawing or making elaborate art projects or playing old school games. We like to do a lot of like Candyland and Shoots and Ladders, Guess Who, the old games at our house as well. And then dance parties. So spontaneous turn on music, living room dance parties are some of our favorite things to do.
Why don't we do that right now?
Just as long as you don't sing.
Let's start this up. Well, y'all know the secret. I was born with an extra hip muscle. So
Okay.
I can move. I can move.
Again, I don't know what that means.
That happens at least twice an episode. Well, speaking of moving, man, I know you were moving a little bit growing up. Let's hear more about that.
Yeah. So you mentioned I dance. I really don't dance too much anymore,
Yeah.
but it is something that we grew up doing. So my father was an inline skater. He also studied martial arts growing up. And so my mother, quick background story. So my mother is from Suriname, which is in South America. A lot of people don't know where Suriname is located, but it's between Guyana and French Guyana. She speaks Dutch, and she grew up in the Netherlands. And so when she came over to New York, she met my father, and whoops, they had me. But growing up, I like to say we were really creative before creative was cool, really because of my father's background and my mother's background. And, my father being a professional dancer, and, that's how he provided for us. And so, when I learned how to walk, I learned how to skate. And that was like really instrumental in our upbringing coming up, in New York. And then we later transitioned down to Greensboro, where we were raised. But dancing, movement was really a key part of how we expressed ourselves growing up. And now I don't do that as much, but it's still a part of who I am and a part of our story.
Oh, that's great. Where in New York did your father dance or?
Yeah, so like Central Park.
Okay.
If you know Central Park, back in like, the 90s.
Yeah.
He actually was a stunt double on the movie Hackers. I don't know if you guys remember the Hackers. It was like Angelina Jolie's first movie. And there was this character called Nikon, I believe was his name. Yeah. And he was his stunt double, essentially. So, we grew up, early years in New York, in the city, spent some time in Brooklyn, and my parents didn't want to raise us in the city, so they moved down south and grew up there.
That makes sense. Well, that's good. Well, one of the ways you talk about staying light, I mean, during COVID, we had a lot of conversations, one of which that led us to doing this platform. But one of the things that John connected me with you, I believe, and we may have met independently, but I attribute it to John. And, just getting to know you has been one of the better experiences through COVID, and just seeing everything you and your brothers are doing and where you come from has just been great. So I know we're going to get into that, but maybe talk a little bit about the two of your relationship, John and Khaleel. Maybe talk a little bit about how you guys got to know each other and just how that relationship has grown.
Yeah, for sure. You want me to kick it off, John, or would you like to?
Sure. I mean, I can. I remember in the we just released an episode on social capital, and to me this is the power of social capital when it becomes a catalyst for change. We had an intern with us when I was at the Center for Intentional Leadership named Megan McLean, who was at Johnson C. Smith at the time. And I call a guy in the community who's been super influential to me. One of the first, entrees into work in diversity was Eric Watson. And Eric had connected Megan to us. And I remember when we were starting Intentional Movement back there, which was really a program to get people connected across different backgrounds and industries, and using hikes to do that. And we were doing this event. We had this guide coming down. We needed some promo videos, and I remember asking Megan, like, okay, who is some great people to connect with? And truth be told, I had a tough sometimes with like vendors that we worked with, especially in the creative world, and it's no knock, but sometimes, creative there's a niche that Khaleel brought very early on around business mindedness, execution, and then incredible purpose and talent. So I remember, I think I was out west and we were chatting it up. I was out skiing or something, and we were talking through this video, and that was the first project that we got to do together with you and Malik. And I think just for me, this is the beauty, I think, of when we expand our networks is it's how I met Brandon and Shivani, is that when you do that, all of a sudden you find people that are so connected to your purpose that but it expands in a way that, hadn't worked with a young entrepreneur before. And I'll let you pick it up from there, but we have grown. There's a lot more to the story, but that's where we first met. And to see, gosh, all the projects we've done over the years, right? I mean, but that first one was pretty fun.
Yeah, it was. I think that was in 2018, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
At the Whitewater Center is
That's
where we
right.
filmed that first kind of recap video and promo for Intentional Movement. But yeah, that was the first time that we connected through Megan, and didn't know much about the center, didn't know much about what Intentional Movement was, but thought it would be a good opportunity. 2018 was the first year that I had committed to working in Loyd Visuals full time. So previously, I graduated UNC Charlotte in 2014, December 2014, with a health communication and public health degree. And so I got into healthcare for 3 years, but I immediately realized that wasn't what I wanted to do. And so I ended up starting the business, convincing my younger brothers to go into business with me. And then at the end of 2017, quitting or retiring from my corporate career. And so 2018 was a really, really tough year for me because I was out on my own. I was trying to figure it out. And that's when, we connected. And, I let people know, when I tell the story, that 2018 was like the roughest year of one of the roughest years of my life because of that transition. And being able to connect with you during that time was a true blessing, because not only were we able to really do some meaningful work, but I was able to make a connection with somebody in the community that also really cared about some of the things that I cared about. And so for us, it's a lot deeper than the what, right? Showing up with cameras, producing commercials, documentaries, things of that nature. It's the why, and it's being able to connect and build those relationships with people that really mean a lot to us, versus just creating the content. And while that is really meaningful, it's the things that you don't really see on the surface that mean a lot. And so being able to connect with you, producing some really cool content was really fun. We had a really great time. And like you mentioned, that first project led to countless others that I'm sure we'll talk about. But yeah, I think we met just perfect timing.
Well, and it was. And then I remember when we had the big documentary, the first one, when we took 11 leaders out to Mammoth, California. A lot of people don't know this story, but this is when I think we make room for each other, when things come full circle, right? You were building a business. I knew what that was like, being an early stage consultant where you're just out hustling, everything. You're just trying to make things work. And I remember when we had the chance, when one of the leaders said, "Hey, I know this is covered by a foundation, but I want to put an investment towards something in the project." And I said, we were using Fisher Creative, which is this renowned, filming company out of Jackson, Wyoming. They've done stuff on Everest. But I knew you would be able to add something. I knew your heart for community and to be able to work across different cultures and backgrounds as well with the two companies. So I told this guy, I said, "How about you pay for Khaleel to come on this trip?" And I'll never forget you being out there in Mammoth, working with the Fisher guys, and I still get moved thinking about it, because then, that came back. Y'all did part of the project, the post-production. I remember the Fisher guys thinking, gosh, we got so much out of working with Khaleel. And I think later, yes, it does take sometimes. We talk a lot about this exchange where as your business was successful, then I went back as I left my company into startup mode. How many times I've called you like, "Hey man, I'm struggling with this hire," or "I don't know what to do." And you're like, "John, this is where you go." Or you say, you need to focus because you know me well. And I just think, like, sometimes, you know, that story, we talk a lot about the Don Wall, where the climber Tommy Caldwell decides he's got to go up because his climbing partner wasn't ready to get across a pitch. Well, he goes further up and says, hold on a second. I couldn't stand to go to the summit without my brother. And he looks down and says, I'm not going up without Kevin. And he goes back down and he looks Kevin in the eye and says, I don't care what it takes. We are going up this summit together. And then he is this catalyst. He is this force for change. And then Kevin starts doing stuff. He ends up getting across because he just needed someone to really believe in him. And then he's doing things that, you know, Tommy was never able to do. But I think that's the power of our connection and seeing what you're out doing now. Like, I couldn't be more proud. I couldn't be more proud to see the voices you're amplifying in our community. Project we're working on now, reimagining, you know, public school system with young people and just what you've done with your brother. So that's what I think is the power of this. When we see ourselves in each other, sometimes someone may be further along in their career, and sometimes it's gonna flip, and then that person's there to throw you the rope and say, yo, I got you because you're on my team. We're on belay together.
Yeah. For sure. Lifting as you climb, you know, that's a term that sticks out to me a lot because, you know, we all have our individual talents and strengths, and we're all put on this earth for a specific reason. And so to the analogy about, you know, climbing a mountain, it's not just about getting there by yourself. It's about, you know, who you're able to bring up with you along the way. And so even in business, I look around, there's not a lot of, you know, my peers that have a business or that are doing some of the things that I'm doing. And so I try as best as I can to be able to give back and lift when I can. But, you know, John, you have been a really great just advocate and champion for us, you know, over the years. And I know we don't have any tissues out, so I'm not going to get too heartfelt. But no, I really, really appreciate just everything that you've done and just being in our corner. That alone just really means a lot to know that you have people that just believe in you and believe in the vision and are willing to provide opportunities and speak about you when you're not in the room and things of that nature. Like the little things like that really go a long way. So yeah, we got to continue to lift as we climb. So
Absolutely. I love that you said that in part because the way that I got to know about you was obviously through John and just speaking about you as an individual, about you and your brothers and the business. And before I even had a chance to meet you on one of these intentional movement hikes, when we were doing some filming, I had already this like elevated image of who you might be and the work that you're trying to invest in. And so it is about how you speak about each other and others when people are not present as well. And then being able to, you know, I was like, I want to get him on a project. I'm not filming anything, but let's do something.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. So hearing that, where you are now and all the projects you have in the pipeline, and going back, you said 2018 was the hardest point in time. And I think we often look at people, and I bet there are people looking at you right now like, man, Khaleel has it so easy. Like, you know, he had a corporate job and then he just moved into this and not realizing all the sacrifice and like probably the doubt that you had. So let's go forward and say, what is, in the last couple of years, what have you been most proud of?
wow, that's
Where's the moment that you're like, man, we've done it or we're doing it?
yeah. I mean, I just had a conversation with Malik and Najim yesterday, and you know, I'm a part of a couple programs, so I got a chance to go through the Amped Up program, which is ran by the city of Charlotte.
Okay.
It essentially is a program that helps minority-owned businesses here in Charlotte just continue to grow and scale. And I have to give a lot of credit to that program because I was able to meet people. I was able to get the tools, the information, the resources to really create like a growth plan for our business. So like looking at the next 3 years, looking at the next 5 years. And I graduated from that in 2020. And then I had some other folks reach out to me and recruited me into another program called Scale Up Charlotte, which is another accelerator that is in collaboration with EOA, so Entrepreneurs Organization Accelerator, and the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance. And so within that program, I'm able to speak with, you know, companies and the leaders of companies that are making, generating $5 million in revenue plus, $10 million in revenue plus. And that access to people and information is invaluable because I'm able to take that information and apply it directly to us. So I say all that just to say I had my group meeting yesterday, and we always go over like our revenue for the month, and we're able to share that, openly within our small group. And I was reviewing that with Malik and Najim, and I was going down all of the projects that we have in the pipeline. We're booked out until February of 2022, and I just had to take a step back because, we're all like really tired. We've been working really hard. The fourth quarter is always like the busiest time of the year for us. And I told them, I said, hey guys, like this is what we've done year to date. This is our accounts receivables before the end of the year even it comes to an end. And here's what we're projected to do potentially next year. And I just held up the phone with the numbers that I crunched, and I said, guys, this is no like little feat. We're doing something that our parents have never done and the people around us have never done. Like, we come from a low-income community. Our parents didn't go to college, right? So with all of the cards stacked up against us, we were able to come together and eventually, I'm going to speak this into existence for next year, be a multi-million-dollar company. And that, to me, it's not about the money. It's more so about the journey that we've been able to take, and then us being able to say, hey, guys, like, you can do it too, right? Kids in high school graduating, trying to figure out what they want to do, or kids in college coming out not wanting to go in the corporate world. Hey, here's another route. And so I think that's the thing that I'm most proud about, is just the journey that we've taken from just a vision to now actually manifesting, a business.
Yeah, and I think we talked a lot about the process and the journey, and how important that is. And I remember I was sharing a story recently how sometimes it can be, I'll say for me, I reminded myself of one of my favorite 2 words last week, and it's just no shortcuts, right? If you really want to do something, there's no magic pill, there's no this, there's no that. It's just you have to work. You've got to put the time in. I remember you've told me all the time, John, the best way to have success is to stay in business. What's that quote? Isn't there one? I forget.
No, you got it.
And
the best way to scale a business is to stay in business.
yeah. And the consistency, though, but there's been some really tough things. You and I had some tough conversations early on where I think sometimes because of the historical causes in our country and the segregation, where we get taught, we see this in the social capital reports that we've seen from Brookings and other national organizations, Opportunity Insights, Foundation for the Carolinas, that social capital tends to be lowest for black boys, black men. And then immigrant community comes next, and it's highest for white communities. And we know the historical narratives and causes that the forces of all of that has tried to keep us separate. It's tried to do that. But you have transcended that. And I think sometimes I've heard from different leaders of different backgrounds tend to say, well, I will only work with people like me, right? And so tell us about your journey to really transcend, to be a man who's black, whose mom's from Suriname, who you employ people of all different backgrounds. You employ your brothers. You have done all kinds of projects. You've worked with leaders of different ethnicities. And what is your journey? Because that I'm sure hasn't been easy to do that. I'm sure people have told you, why you working with this group or that, and really the sense of a little bit about that, and then the sense of purpose you draw from related to being a family guy.
Yeah, great question. I think it just goes back to my why. And my why has always been to help provide a better lifestyle for my family. When I was younger, you don't really know the situation that your family's in. You just go through the motions, you go to school. And it wasn't until I got to middle school that I was like, oh, mom and dad can't afford to buy me new sneakers. All right, cool. I got to go out and get some new Filas or something for myself. But there was also just a strain financially early on that I realized. And so that was, when I was 12, that was the moment that I was like, okay, I'm going to at least take care of myself so that my parents could focus on my brothers. And so that's really been the core of my why in terms of being able to create a sustainable structure that we could potentially pass down to our future children. But on that note about, this country and just how, it started and the inequalities that we face, I realized, as I continue to grow older that, one, I feel like in some ways I was miseducated from like middle school, high school. Like I didn't really learn the proper things that I needed to learn in order to be a successful citizen, contributing citizen to the society, in my opinion. I didn't really know about, the ancient civilizations of Africa. I didn't know about the Moors. I didn't understand, why things were the way they were. And then as I continued to do some more research, I realized wow, it's a reason why we don't know this information, because if we have the power of the information to know who we truly are, then what would happen? The whole structure of how America was founded would be turned upside down. And so I first empowered myself with knowledge, and then I used that to understand the world around me a bit more. And as I continued to matriculate through college, get into corporate, I realized that, hey, I don't really know if my company truly cares about the things that I care about. In 2016, we had Keith Lamont Scott that was murdered here in Charlotte. We had Philando Castile, and then Alton Sterling. And 2016 was a year where I was still working at my job, and I had to go back to my cubicle and be like, man, all of this madness is going on. We're seeing people get killed on the internet, and there's no response. This was pre-Black Lives Matter. And I told myself that it's important for me to be able to create another structure so that we can continue to change this narrative that's happening. And that was really important to me. So, kind of just going back to the why, that's the underneath the hood. That's the, on the operating table when I'm thinking about hey, what are some of the things that really make me go, and what makes me tick is being able to say, hey guys, we took a risk, we took a chance, and it's not for ourselves, but it's for generations to follow. And all of the major companies that were founded back in the early 1900s, you have Walmart, you have Johnson & Johnson, you have Ford, these were all family companies. And so when I started understanding that, I said, okay, well, let's just create something of our own. And that led us to be able to really get aligned with who we are and the type of work that we wanted to do. So we want to foster a world that really helps tell authentic stories. And we do that through, the services that we provide to companies and different organizations.
Wow, that's great. So part of what I heard through you and part of what John was getting at, there are unique people in our society, and I put us probably all in the category, who can serve as bridges between different communities, right? And so learning all the history that you learn, there probably is a propensity to be, to John said, some people would say, well, I'm not working with anyone who's not like me, but appreciating that there's a lot to learn from Johnson & Johnson's of the world, right? Yeah. And being able to bridge in some of the projects you've done that you've been able to do in an authentic way with people from different backgrounds and connect without sort of all these buzzwords, right? That tend to turn people off. But being able to really do that. So how would you characterize your ability to do that? And do you think of yourself as being like that bridge who can help bridge some of this social capital?
Yeah, I hope that we can. I want to be able to build a multi-million-dollar company, not just for me, but so that I can employ other people from, our communities. And that's really important to us. But I think we come into every project with a different perspective than your traditional video production companies. Our industry is really, dominated by white males, right? Like many other industries. And so we lean into the fact that, hey, we're different and we have a different perspective to bring to the table. And we try to ensure that we tell stories from a culturally competent lens. And so with all of that, we're not coming into the school system like outsiders. Right. We're not coming into, hoods like outsiders. We're coming into these places to really, one, connect, and hopefully the folks that we are interacting with, they realize that we are them, right? The spirit of Ubuntu, right? That John and I have connected with on quite a bit. It's, I am because we are. And so when we come into, our different projects, and we may be working with, for instance, we're helping Roof Above with their True Blessings annual fundraiser, which is going to be on November 16th. And we got a chance to go to the shelter last week and film and talk with some of our homeless neighbors. And, those projects mean a lot to us because it's not just about providing a service. It's not just transactional. It's about saying, like, hey, guys, we truly care, and we want to give some humanity to your story, and it's not exploitive in any stretch of the imagination. And so I think that's what companies, or that's what I hope companies, organizations see about us, that it's not just, hey, guys, we just want to hire a production company just to come and film. We want to hire people that truly care about the work that we do and that can help us tell the story from a culturally appropriate lens.
You speak to the impact of storytelling, right? We talk about storytelling all the time, people sharing the life that they've lived through, and you are able to use your creativity and your team to really highlight these stories. But it sounds like, for most production companies, I would imagine there's like that transaction of you do the job and then we don't hear from you ever again. Tell us a little bit about the relationships that you've been able to foster through the projects that you've made that have been more lasting beyond the production date.
Yeah, that's a great question. One thing that I'm realizing now, or trying to understand, is like the life cycle of a client or the life cycle of a relationship, right? Because if you do really well and somebody has a really great interaction with you, so we'll take John, for example. We did work with John in 2018. John introduced us to Molly Shaw, former CEO of Communities in Schools. We've done work with Communities in Schools now multiple times. Doing work with Communities in Schools led us to doing work with the Gambrell Foundation, which we are still doing work with, right? So like all of these people, from John to CIS to the Gambrell Foundation, we've done at least 2 to 3 projects just through connections, just through building those relationships. And I talked to one of my good friends. He was formerly at Airbnb, and he brought us on to do a world tour back in 2019, which was really cool. But he's at another company now. And because, I value relationships, I'm going to let you know, like, hey, I'm calling you for business, or I'm calling you just to check in. And with him, I said, hey, man, just want to check and see how you're doing. And he's like, hey, Khalil, I'm doing really good. I may have some opportunities coming up for you. And I said, hey, I appreciate that, but I was really just calling check. And he said, I know that, but because I value our relationship and I value the work that you do, it makes my job easier to work with somebody that I trust. And so that's just examples of how we've been able to grow and scale our business. It's really authentic. It's not opportunistic. It's really just from a standpoint of like, hey, we really care about people and we want to do good work and we want to deliver. And that has given us a great ROI. Yeah.
That's great. Well, and we've talked a lot here. You mentioned Ubuntu, about leading with abundance, leading with like having a 360 vision, of, wait a minute, hey, how you doing? How's your business doing? I don't know how many times I've called small businesses and, they're one contract away from not making a payroll. And I think the power of creativity is if we create some stuff in a capitalist economy, there needs to be some transactions made, right? And that's part of what you're doing, is elevating the stories, but also having created. You could have gone out and just created Loyd Visuals. You could have created Khaleel Loyd, but you did something with your brothers. And I've got a quote here from your brother Malik. I know Malik and Najim, as how much that means to you. And he said, and I quote, "In order to succeed, every artist and creative needs a manager, and every business needs a visionary. Khalil's been the glue to building a profitable business and lifestyle for our family. If we all weren't working together as brothers, we wouldn't have what we have now. So when you hear that from Malik, what's that mean to you?
John's trying to get me teary.
Oh, he does it to everybody.
Oh man, yeah. Man, when I go back to the why, that's what it is,
Yeah.
right? It's yeah, sacrificed a lot, to be where we are now. I think that message just means a lot to me because, what people don't truly understand is that we are like the ones out of our family that, everybody looks to. My grandma is in a pinch, she calls me, right? Mm-hmm. Like my mother and father, they call me. And, it's a time where there's a transition that's occurring where, our grandparents, they did what they had to do to set a foundation. Our parents did everything that they could do. And now the baton is being passed on to us. And so with that, a lot of times because I work with my two brothers every day, we don't really talk about, what's really kind of going on with each other. I'm making it a point now. So like literally yesterday before we talk business, I'm like, hey, mental health check-in. Like, how are you guys doing? Like, what's really going on? Because we have to establish that connectivity that goes beyond just numbers, that just goes beyond the projects that we're working on. And so when I was in college and realized that I was working 2-3 jobs to try to hustle, I was taking out like loans, like school loans to help my family out. I was like, man, I don't want my younger brother to have to go through this. And so when I started working as a healthcare consultant, I was like, man, I'm still living paycheck to paycheck, right? So I'm going through all of this. Malik is 5 years younger than me. So I'm going through all of this. And I'm like, I don't want to go through this in vain. Like, I need to be able to do something so that they don't have to go through the same things that I'm going through. And, I realized very quickly that there was a ceiling to my earning potential working, period. And to really change the trajectory of my life and my family's life, we had to come together and work in unison for a common goal. And so I'm so glad that now Malik is, in a position where he graduated in 2018. In 2019, we landed a contract with Airbnb. Mm-hmm. And we traveled to like 12 different countries around the world, right? Malik is 24 and he owns his own business now. And there may come a time where we do other things in our life. But for me as an older brother to be able to provide some opportunities to Malik to allow him to just express himself creatively and then to not have to worry about anything financially, that really means a lot to me. Mm-hmm. So, I appreciate you reaching out to me, grabbing that, man. That was special. Thank you.
Yeah. It seems like you, through all the work and effort and support that you've been able to put together, you've become this pillar for your family, right? And it's a lot of pressure to hold up that ceiling as a pillar, but you also have this tremendous support at your base as well. And I think reminding yourself to also fill that base and create those supports is really important, and recognizing all of the things that go into that so that you can continue to hold up that ceiling.
For sure.
But you've done an amazing job at it.
Thank you.
Yeah, we started this with 3 kind of key aspects of what we're trying to embody and accomplish, and catalyst, creativity, and courage. And your story is just like the perfect blend of all those, that you're doing them all so like in unison, right? Mm-hmm. The courage to take the steps that you're taking to go through that tough phase in 2018, to use your creativity that it sounds like was kind of passed down from your father, right? Yeah. And embody that, but also have the business acumen and just be a catalyst for all your family is just really amazing. Mm-hmm. And so I'll just share one. I thought you may have mentioned this, but the moment, and going back to Ubuntu, the moment that I felt most proud of you guys was, I remember you gave me a heads up that, you're working on some project, You couldn't tell the company, but it was going to be a commercial. And I was like, okay, whatever. I was like, we'll see what it is. And then I can't remember, it was like a big event that was going on, and I'm watching this commercial, and being a Charlotte native, I see all this Charlotte-based commercial with all these businesses in places I know, and people I know. I'm like, oh man, this commercial is awesome. Like, who came up with this? And then at the end, like subtly, you and your brothers kind of stroll on. I think it's like in a street, like towards the end with your cameras. And I'm like, man, like that's when it hit me. I was like, man, I'm so proud of Khaleel and everything he's done and being on this spot. And it just seemed like that was like the perfect moment.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
yeah.
Man.
So that got to me. I almost had the John Davis moment. But I was so proud. I told my wife, I was like, look, rewind this back. It's Khaleel.
Yeah. No, that. You know what? I think that's a great, maybe a story to tell about how he got to that point.
Yeah.
Back in 2020, Charlotte Center City Partners had partnered up with Honeywell for the Innovation Fund. And so I believe Honeywell donated like $2 million to this fund. And so they were giving out grants to local businesses to help them sustain throughout COVID. And, we applied. We didn't get it the first time. We applied again. We didn't get it the second time. But what happened throughout that time of us trying to apply for the grant is I was able to meet Rick Thurman from Charlotte City Partners. And he connected me with Jatanya Adams from Historic West End. And then through that, we got connected to Honeywell, right? And so again, going back to like the relationships and the connectivity piece, it was a situation where although we ended up getting the grant too, but through that, we then were able to get other business as a part of people just knowing who you were. And Honeywell and Charlotte City Partners hired us to document the grant recipients, 5 grant recipients here in Charlotte. And we put it out there. They were able to, put it out there on all our digital platforms. And then maybe a couple months later, Honeywell reached back out and said, hey guys, like we love the video so much. Can you turn it into a 60-second commercial piece for us? And not only do we want you guys to, re-edit this, but we want to feature you in the video as well. Wow. And that was a pretty big moment for us because that was our first commercial that we've ever produced, but not knowing that it would be turned into a commercial. That was a really special moment. And there's a backstory, to that as well. But, moments like that are highlights for us. And in some ways, there are so many highlights that I sometimes forget or I don't speak about them, publicly because we're just like focused on doing the work. But moments like this allow me to just kind of reflect and be like, wow, that did happen. And here's the behind the scenes of how it came together and culminated. So, yeah, really, really nice moment.
Well, it just goes to when you are consistent, and you're doing great work and honoring your values, and you're not like sometimes you're not trying to, certainly you got to chase certain proposals, engagements, but sometimes if you're just doing really good stuff and people connect to it at the right time, you and I talk a lot about discernment and then readiness for opportunity. I know there's times where even in the past year I haven't been ready for a certain opportunity, maybe from a spiritual standpoint, or I'm not yet equipped. But when I am, it will come if you're following that path. And so as we close out today, love to just give you first just some closing thoughts from Brandon and Shivani, what you're taking away, and then Khaleel, would love to give you the last minute just on just any message, whatever's on your heart, whether it's to your brothers, the creative community, or just anyone who's thinking about making that leap, because that's a bold move. It's a bold move to leave, the security of what you were doing, and then though, just not only that, to say I'm going to bring people close to me with me, and then begin to build an infrastructure that rewards and takes the whole community with you. And you've done that in so many ways. You've elevated. I wrote here that there's when we express, if we express, as when the great things happen. If we don't, we suppress, and if we suppress for too long, that becomes depress or depression. And so I'm just left with how much more expression we need, how much more creative expression across communities, and that you're providing a platform for those voices to become louder. And the more we hear that, the more I hear you, I can actually look you in the eye and say, I see you. I may not have the same experience. How many times that's occurred with me being, on the screen, you see it. I'm a white guy, I'm a white skin tone, but how many times I've looked at Brandon being a black man and acknowledging the things he goes through, but to say, hey, brother, I see you. And I'm going to act not from all these terms, but from, that's my brother. And to look at Shivani, to be able to hear, to celebrate Diwali today, and what an opportunity it is to know her, but to know what she might experience as an Indian American woman. But to then get past those categories, because we got to acknowledge them, they're real, they're there, and we've done this in history, and then to say, what an amazing human being. How much have I learned, and the gifts I've been able to, picking up her son the other day from Taekwondo. To me, that's what this is about. I don't have kids, and I get 2 hours to hang out with her son. And I think the more we express, and I'm inspired today to continue to dial this up a notch, to dial what's inside me. It's not easy because I've been taught in my life to suppress, right? To keep it in a box. And I'm left with the importance of our voices getting more and more louder, and to step back sometimes and say, wait a minute, what voices do I need to put on the loudspeaker? What experiences do I not have access to because I just didn't do it? Doesn't make anything wrong or bad with me, but I can widen and grow, and that's what I've taken away from you, and just the longevity, how fun it is to sit back sometimes. And it is important to say, like, hey, y'all, we're doing some cool stuff, like, that's awesome. So I know whoever wants to jump in, and then we'll give Yusuf a friend.
Yeah, so again, today is the first day of the Valley here. It'll be past by the time we go, but going back to our theme of the light that we started with, I take away from today the light that you have shined on your family, with the work that you've done, the light that you've shined on people that you work with, and building those relationships and bringing additional joy and happiness and storytelling, the light that you share on stories to uncover shadows that might be in our history, in our current state, and shifting that darkness, right? The way that light visually as well as in spirit is able to shift that darkness and really help open up new views of how we live the world. And so I think that the work that you do is light for so many different people, right? The direct contacts that you make with people, as well as the passive receivers of who is watching your content and being able to see all of that light. And so I celebrate you and the light that you shine on the world.
Thank you. Likewise.
Yeah, I don't know if I have much to add. I would just say, since John mentioned categories, I would say age is another category we often put in this box and think that it has to be structured this way. And I always thought it was weird. It happened once or a couple times before, where someone would say, you know what, you're younger than me, but you're kind of like a mentor. And I thought it's weird the first time I heard it. But I think about that with you. And I think I went in thinking, maybe I can mentor Khaleel, kind of help them along. And what I found is, man, you have been an inspiration to me and so many other people. And so just keep doing what you're doing, man. Like with your brothers, bringing your family into it, with business. I can't tell you like how much that means, and to see you on that screen, like I say, I keep going back to commercial, man. That really got to me. So, because I have a brother, and so I understand that connection. So just keep doing what you're doing and keep being that bridge to bridge all the different communities in Charlotte, because you're navigating that space and just having that corporate background. It's really invaluable.
Yeah,
like people will say like, oh, corporate America, but it's an invaluable kind of skill set and background to have that you're now merging with creativity. And in a city like this, we just need so much more of that, because we have those both great communities that are separate. So just keep doing what you're doing, man, and keep being an inspiration to all of us.
Thank you. No, I really appreciate it. And again, thank you all for having me on a platform we all live very like busy lives. And so, you know, in my opinion, time is one of our most valuable assets. And by us being able to share space, to share time together, that means that we're sharing life. And so I appreciate that, especially because you all have full-time jobs and kids, and there's a lot of other things that are going on outside of this room that that you could be doing, but we're here. And so, you know, it really means a lot to me that we're able to have this discussion. I think I'm better for it. Hopefully, you know, we've all learned something today through this conversation. And if there's one thing that I want to just end with is, you know, life is but a vapor, right? And so we have to really take the time that we have here and maximize it as much as possible. Work hard, but rest when you need. You know, don't feel like you need to quit your job, right? Like me, I had a conviction, and that's what I wanted to do. But I think it goes back to self-awareness and really looking yourself in the mirror and saying, hey, like, my life is my life, and it's not to compare to anyone else. And so I have to make the best decisions for myself and the people that are around me. And so, yeah, just continue to follow the journey. You know, it's really just getting started. Just getting started. We turned 5 in December, so our 5-year business anniversary is December 19th of 2021. And so I want to give a huge shout out to the team and everybody that works with us, along with all our clients that trust us with telling their stories and helping them bring their visions to life. So thank you.
Love it, love it.
Great.
Well, I've been trying to elevate my fashion game so I can be the 4th Loyd brother.
Sure.
But now, bro, as we close out, man, where can people find you? I know you're on social and other places, and you know, also thank you just for making room for us today with all you have happening.
No, without a doubt.
Yeah.
So you can follow us on LoydVisuals.com is our website with
Okay.
one L. Traditionally, Loyd is spelled with 2 L's, but our last name, family's last name is with 1 L. And so same thing across Instagram, Facebook, Twitter's at Loyd Visuals. And yeah, that's how you can stay in contact with us. And then one last thing. So John, Yusuf means Joseph in Arabic, which is my father's name. And Khaleel does mean friend of God in Arabic.
got it.
Yeah, so you got it right. But Khaleel is, you know, a friend essentially. So that's what that means. And hopefully, you know, we can continue to embrace that that spirit of friendship, you know, amongst us all.
We invite you to continue making room with us. You'll find this episode and all of our exciting and meaningful conversations on Apple, Spotify, or really anywhere you choose to listen to podcasts.
Join the Making Room movement and get more info at makingroomwithus.com or follow us on Instagram at Making Room With Us.
Thank you for showing up for us and each other. Until next time.
You are wonderful and full of truth, just as you are. You are wonderful, so full of truth, just as you are. Oh. You are wonderful, so full of truth, just as you are, just as you are. You're welcome here, just as you are.